Let me ask a simple question. If we compare a seashell and the Mona Lisa, what similarities can we find? Now, some of you might say color, others might say the shape. But I have one answer that might surprise you all. My answer is a spiral. More specifically, the golden spiral. Now, you all might be thinking, Evander, yes, we can see a spiral in a seashell, but the Mona Lisa? And my answer to that, yeah, you're not supposed to see it because it's hidden right underneath it. And even I didn't notice it too. The first time I truly saw it was on the cover of my math textbook. There was a sunflower with a spiral drawn on top of it. Now, I had known what this spiral was, but to me, it was just a geometric curve, something that only existed in a boring, long math class. But at that after that point, I started seeing it everywhere. The Parthenon in Athens, Greece, The Great Wave by Katsushika Hokusai, and, again, even the Mona Lisa. At that point, me, who you could call a math fanatic, was utterly confused. All of this can just be a massive coincidence. Was math really an art this entire time? This led me to a bigger question. Why do some images, designs, and natural forms feel visually pleasing to us, even if we don't understand why? And how is math already being used in art, even by people who hate it? To understand this further, let me give a basic explanation of what this golden spiral is. To be frank, it's a geometric curve that grows and grows without changing shape. No matter how large it becomes, it remains proportionally the same. Now, for the sake of every single person here inside this room, I will not be talking about the mathematical properties. Rather, I will be talking about its natural, practical, and natural aspects. And I am saying this literally. Sunflowers arrange their seeds in patterns that resemble Fibonacci numbers. Seashells grow in expanding spiral patterns, and plants distribute leaves in, in a shape that resembles the golden spiral to maximize sunlight and efficiency. Nature is not trying to create art. Rather, it's following patterns that allow them to survive. Yet those same patterns we find beautiful. Because we see proportions in nature, it suddenly feels familiar to us. An article made by Psychology Today states that humans are actually very good at recognizing patterns. But how do we know this? Let me demonstrate a simple experiment. Excuse me, sir. If I were to say the word clock, what comes up to your mind first? A clock. What comes up to your mind? And excuse me, ma'am. If I say the word book, what comes up to your mind? Reading. Now, see how the both of you gave different answers? That's pattern recognition in action. When we see patterns that we have encountered our entire lives, they feel comfortable. Even if we don't know the underlying reason, we still respond to it. And this is where art and photography can enter this conversation. Artists and photographers place key elements along this curve to act as a natural guide for our eyes. In fact, Some art historians have suggested that certain works have used these patterns in their works. Now, whether they actually use this pattern or just use their brain and intuition is still heavily debated. However, scholars have observed works such as the Parthenon and the Great Wave has had compositional guides similar to this. At this point, we can return back to the original question. If people dislike mathematics, what is actually going on? Perhaps it's not that people just dislike mathematics, but because mathematics is only presented through equations and formulas. Raise your hand if you don't like being forced to remember something. And raise your hand if you don't like being forced to remember math equations. Now, if math appears through nature, art, photography, and even architecture, it doesn't feel intimidating. Rather, it naturally feels beautiful. This realization changed the way I view art. What began as a simple observation on my math textbook turned into a different perspective on art and design. Now, when I see something that looks unnaturally balanced, I sometimes wonder whether there's something hidden underneath it that's quietly shaping it. Now, you don't have to use the golden spiral to make something beautiful, and artists don't have to use a bunch of mathematical ratios to make something look comfortable, to look amazing, because we all know beauty is subjective. But the fact that math and aesthetics are this intertwined adds something interesting. Math may not be as separate from creativity as we originally thought. Rather, it may be one of the hidden frameworks that support it. So, the next time you see something that looks beautiful and comfortable, you might all ask the same thing I did. Is it coincidence? Or is there something hidden underneath it? And your answer may depend on how closely you choose to look at it. Thank you very much.